Let me tell you what's actually happening with the LSAT right now because this is not getting enough attention. People are taking the LSAT, they're finishing the test, they're doing everything they're supposed to do, but then they just don't get their scores. Not just a week late, I'm talking months here. I heard from someone just yesterday whose LSAT score has been on hold for so long, they decided to just give up on this application cycle and push everything to next year. And they didn't cheat or anything. They weren't even accused of cheating. Their score just didn't come back. They emailed LSAC, they told somebody would follow up with them, and they waited, but then nothing. No explanations, no timelines. This is not a way to plan your life. And before you think this is some rare, unlucky situation, unfortunately, it's not. We're now seeing multiple reports of 100-day LSAT score holds across different test dates with different students. And that's why this is such a big deal, because, of course, LSAT cheating is hard to measure. Cheaters, of course, are not announcing themselves, but score holds are visible, they're trackable, and these are happening to real people who haven't done anything wrong, and their futures are now stuck in place. Because without your LSAT score, everything else is on hold too. You can't apply to law schools, you can't get scholarship offers, you can't make your financial decisions or even decisions about whether to relocate for law school. You're kind of frozen or stuck in time. Now, the most likely explanation is this. LSAC is probably manually reviewing a massive number of online LSAT administrations, and their system is just not set up to handle that level of volume. For those who've been following for a while, there's been a rise in cheating on the LSAT over the past couple of years with the move to online LSAT testing. And those cheating concerns massively increased scrutiny of the online LSAT to the point that LSAC just shut down administering the LSAT in mainland China after the October 2025 LSAT. That's why, for those of you in China, there was no option to take the LSAT in January. And so LSAC is, in further attempt to shut down the cheating, they are doing more human reviews layered into a system that was never really built for this scale, causing a bottleneck. And bottlenecks are especially dangerous when the exam is a prerequisite for the rolling admissions process. If your applications are delayed by 3 months, that's costing you scholarship money, it's limiting your options, and it can delay you an entire application cycle. And of course, I think it's good that LSAC is being careful, but honest test takers are paying the price here. And they followed the rules. People who studied honestly and took the exam legitimately, and they're now stuck with no explanation, and there's no way for them to really advocate for themselves. And the problem is the silence on the part of LSAC. There's no clear acknowledgement of how widespread this is. There's no explanation of what triggers a hold. There's no precedent for this, no published data on how long these manual reviews might take. And so the people affected are just kind of waiting, and all the while, it's not as if cheating's magically stopped, right? There's still vulnerabilities with the online LSAT, and the backlog of score holds is only growing with time, it seems. Which leads us to a conclusion that I don't love, but I think we just don't have a choice, which is that online LSAT testing just isn't working right now. And it's not like remote testing is inherently bad. And of course, accessibility for the LSAT matters, but a high-stakes test like the LSAT can't be effectively policed at this scale of tens of thousands of people without serious collateral damage in the form of these folks affected by the score holes. And so, as much as I hate to say it, I think the LSAT does need to move back to in-person testing. Now, they shouldn't ignore accessibility. They should still allow accommodations in reasonable circumstances, but the combination of the widespread LSAT cheating combined with these indefinite score holds, those are real problems. And if your score is locked for months, that's certainly an accessibility issue. And if your applications are delayed an entire cycle, that's also a problem. And if you're forced to guess how you might avoid triggering some automated review system leading to the necessity of a manual review costing you months, that's not fair. And this is not hypothetical. All of this is real. We're hearing this from real LSAT test takers like you, taking the LSAT this cycle, trying to apply this cycle. And of course, there are other problems with remote testing as well, like the clunky proctoring software, dropped connections, shaky internet, confusing instructions, all of which layers additional stress on top of an already stressful exam. And at least the in-person testing is more predictable as an experience and doesn't is not likely to trigger the same sorts of security holds because at least LSAC knows that you're taking it with an in-person proctor. The likelihood of cheating is significantly reduced. And so I suspect that the large score holds all that we're seeing now are they're primarily affecting the in-person test takers, for those who are taking the LSAT remotely, not in person. In other words, if you want to reduce the likelihood of you being affected by one of these score holds, I'd probably recommend taking the LSAT in person, if at all possible, because I think that the cheating concerns are more for those taking the LSAT online. And so this is also, by the way, true if you have a history of lower scores and you're expecting a serious increase in your score. Like, let's say that you're expecting that your score is going to improve by 10, 15, 20, 30 points or more, then that might trigger a review on the part of LSAC if you are taking it online, remotely from home. But if you take it in person, it's not likely to trigger the same alarm bells. And of course, the LSAT should not be punishing your improvement, and it shouldn't force you to take it in one format or the other, but this is where we are right now. And of course, the pandemic required or necessitated the remote testing, but now that that's over, I mean, we should be able to go back to in person, I think. Even the accounting exams are back to in person due to cheating as well. They do the bar exam in person, the medical boards are in person. And of course, in person testing probably costs LSAC more money because test centers cost money, US based proctors cost money, the security costs money. But this is derailing people's lives. And so I think that a system where honest test takers have to wait for months to get their scores back is a problem or it's a failure of system design. So if your score is currently on hold, first know that you don't need to panic. This is not an accusation. Your score is not automatically going to get canceled. It just means that you might need to wait a little bit, but of course, document everything. So any related emails around this, the dates on which things occurred, you want to keep organized with all of this and be persistent. Keep following up. Don't give up. Call them, email them, but also be professional, right? Don't get overly emotional with your language. Assume that every message you send them or every call that you make to them could be reviewed, could be recorded, and you want to think about your contingency plan. That might mean that you register for another test date. You might have to adjust your cycle timing, and none of this is fair, of course, but you also can't pretend that it's not happening. And also, this issue goes beyond individual test takers. And of course, I think that those who are being affected should talk with others who are also affected. So connect with others in subreddits or Facebook groups and whatnot, group chats. Try to see if there's any way that you all can work together and exchange notes to better advocate for yourselves. But if you're not looking good for this cycle, given the delays, you might want to sign up for the June LSAT, the August LSAT for a potential retake so that you can apply first thing when applications open in the fall.